Howdy readers, I'm Jason, this is Chapter and Verse, and I come to you tonight with a book and movie haul. So I'm going to haul 4 films. Kelly and I have gotten more films than just these 4 in the last 6 months, but these are the 4 kind of Jason movies that we've gotten. And then I'm going to haul the books that I've acquired in the last 6 or 7 months. So it shouldn't be too long of a video, I don't think, but let's just get right into it. So first off, the films. So this first one, I haven't seen this in a very, very long time. Back when I was recording movies off of movie channels like Encore and Stars and HBO onto VHS tapes, that was the first time I ever saw this. And I probably haven't seen this in 20 years, I would say, at least. And we were at the library book sale earlier this year, and I never look at the DVDs. I never have, but I just thought I would this one time. And lo and behold, I found this on DVD, and I've never even seen it on DVD anywhere, and it's in perfect condition. And that is Truly, Madly, Deeply, which was directed by the great, late Anthony Minghella, who is most famous, of course, for having directed The English Patient and Cold Mountain, also The Talented Mr. Ripley. This is a much, much lesser known work of his. It's got Alan Rickman in it and Juliet Stevenson, and it is marvelous. It's quirky, it is heartbreaking, it's funny. The cover makes it out to be funnier than it actually is, but it's a ghost story, and it's just a lovely, lovely film. And I was really pleased to get this for, I don't know, it was like 50 cents or something. So Truly, Madly, Deeply. And then, as you guys know, the Criterion sale, BarnesandNoble.com's 50% off Criterion sale was recently going on, and I ordered Ingmar Bergman's Shame, which is the Bergman film I have most been wanting to see for a very, very long time. And it's only ever really been available on DVD in box sets, and I never ordered the box sets because I already owned some of the other films in the box sets, and such was the case with Criterion's release of it as well. But they also released the film on its own as a standalone, and so I had to get it. But that is Shame, Ingmar Bergman, starring the great Max von Sydow and Liv Ullmann. And then I also bought recently The Favorite, the movie that should have won Best Picture at the Academy Awards this last February, but it did not. This is by far my favorite of the films from last year that I've seen. And then also in the Criterion sale, I got the box set of The Tree of Life, which includes the theatrical cut of Malick's film and also the extended cut, which I think is, 45 or 50 minutes longer. I haven't watched the extended cut yet, but I hope to very, very soon. So those are the films that I have bought in the last 6 months. Now for the books. So the first one, because we couldn't keep the interlibrary loan copy any longer, is Susan Sontag's The Volcano Lover, which I've talked about at length on this channel. This was our, let me do the math here. This was our March-April book club book. And I'm just now almost done with it. I think I have 28 pages left or something like that. So anyway, it's a wonderful book. It's far superior, in my opinion, to her novel In America. Especially the passages actually dealing with the volcano, with Vesuvius. And then I also got, because I'm going to be doing a kind of buddy read/read-along, or I guess we could call it a buddy read-along next year of this with a handful of booktubers out there, including Brian from Bookish and Leonard Murray, who doesn't have a channel of his own, but he's a regular commenter of mine. I think Mark from Words Everywhere is planning to read this as well. Jasmine from Jasmine's Reads. I think even Adam from Memento Mori might be participating. But anyway, next summer at some point, the lot of us are going to be reading John le Carre's A Perfect Spy, which I've read once before, but really want to read again, because even though I liked it, and I liked it a great deal, enough people think of this book as being one of the finest novels of the 20th century, if not the finest novel of the 20th century, that I really feel like I need to read it again. And so it's going to be fun to read it in company. And next, so here's an odd one, okay? So as you guys know, Kelly and I, for this year anyway, belong to Library of America. Right, so we're sponsors, or I'm not even sure what it's called, but we paid a certain amount of money to support Library of America, and we get discounts on their books and whatnot. And I don't know, a couple of months back, I got an email saying that my order from them had shipped, but I hadn't ordered anything from them. And so I called them to find out what it was and what was going on. And it was this. This is Philip Roth, In Memory. And what this is, and I didn't think it was going to be actually a title of theirs for sale, but I think it is for a limited time. But I got a free copy of it. And so this is a collection of the memories from and speeches given at Philip Roth's memorial, from writers including Nicole Krauss, who actually wasn't there, I think. She couldn't be there. But somebody read her words in her stead. Edna O'Brien, Saul Bellow's wife, I think, Janice Bellow, also offered her thoughts and her memories of Philip Roth. But anyway, I've just flipped through it a couple of times, and it's really moving. It's incredibly moving. So if you're a Philip Roth fan, you should look for this, because I don't think this is going to be available for very long. Anyway, Philip Roth, In Memory. I guess I'll have to excuse my stuffy nose. Allergies have just been wreaking havoc on me here of late. And then this is from our very own booktuber, Brian, over at Bookish. And this is a copy that he very kindly sent me and Kelly of the book that he wrote. This is Thomas Boyd, Lost Author of the Lost Generation by Brian Bruce. And I've read the flaps. I've flipped through it once or twice. I've talked to Brian about it pretty extensively on Voxer. And I'm just really pleased to own this. Thank you, Brian, for sending this to us. This is something that Kelly and I will certainly treasure. And we'll get around to reading at some point. I have no idea who Thomas Boyd was. I doubt many people do, hence the full title of this book. But thank you for sending it our way. And I look forward to having my knowledge of the Lost Generation expanded in some way. So next are a couple of the Library of America books that I did actually buy and did actually order. And the first is Ambrose Bierce's The Devil's Dictionary, Tales, and Memoirs. And Ambrose Bierce's work first crept onto my radar this last January when we read This Republic of Suffering by Drew Gilpin Faust for my mortality project, You Carry a Coffin Today. Bierce fought in the Civil War. He fought through almost all of the Civil War, and wrote extensively about his experiences after the Civil War. And it just sounds marvelous. It sounds absolutely marvelous. And when I saw that Library of America had published a virtual collected works, I don't know if it's all of his work, but it might be. I just had to buy it. So that is Ambrose Bierce. And then this is pretty special. So I know some people don't think much of this writer as a person, as a human being. I know Steve feels that way about him. But my friend Dan, whom I smoked the toad with, we actually smoked the toad last night and watched the Australian film The Turning, which was based on Tim Winton's short story collection. My friend Dan, who is from Kentucky, has been friends with this writer for a very long time. And though he may be bristly, and though he may be off-putting to people in the publishing industry, I've myself have only ever heard really wonderful things about this writer from my friend Dan, and that is Wendell Berry. And Library of America has published this box set of his essays, and it's not his complete essays, I don't believe, but it's a hell of a lot of them. And it's just a really beautiful. If you look at the spine of the box there, a picture of Wendell Berry in his fields. But this is What I Stand On, the collected essays of Wendell Berry, 1969 to 2017. It says collected, but I don't think it's complete. And selections from Sex, Economy, Freedom, and Community. So I've read that whole book. And if it only has selections from it, then it can't be complete. But I'm pretty excited to dig into this. Hopefully next year at some point I can start making inroads. But again, I've only ever heard wonderful things about Wendell Berry, and what I've read of his work blew my mind. So there's that. And then these next, 3 books, I think 3 books, are books that I picked up at the library book sale earlier this year, the bag sale. And the first was, so I've never read anything by G.K. Chesterton, despite his significance as a Christian thinker. And I know that he's also really well loved for his novels, too. And I saw this modern library edition there of his novel, The Man Who Was Thursday. And it's in perfect condition, right? The spine's got nothing wrong with it. Hasn't even been read, because we own many of these modern library gold spine classics, which I love. But with every read, the gold on the spine gets worn away. And if they've been read multiple times, it gets really worn away, which I actually really like, because it just tells you that the book's been loved. So this hasn't been read. And this was quite a find to get for probably, I don't know, the equivalent of 20 cents or something like that. And then I also got one of Salman Rushdie's recent novels, The Golden House, which, again, I've never read. I've read his book Shame. I think it was Shame that we read in the book club. And then The Ground Beneath Her Feet. Those are the 2 Rushdie novels that I've read. And I know that his recent stuff hasn't been as well favored, I suppose, as his earlier novels, but when it's 20 cents and it's in perfect shape, you get it. And if you don't like it, you can just leave it in a little free library. So who knows what the fate of this book will be. And then I also got The Master by Colm Toibin in hardcover. And again, it's in perfect shape. I've always been curious about this book, even though I've never read Henry James, who this book is about. But I have read some Colm Toibin, and I just think him a marvelous writer. And he was really, really kind during the Q&A that I attended, where he was on the panel last year in London. So I thought, well, this was the time for me to pick up The Master. And then lastly, these are some books that I ordered from Daedalus Books, which is a remaindered bookseller online. I get catalogs from them. I've hardly ever ordered things from them in the past, but I found some really good stuff in the last few catalogs. I got this beautiful Everyman's Library edition of Animal Farm by George Orwell. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with these. They've got the ribbon bookmark in them too. And then I ordered this. This is by a Canadian novelist named Johanna Skibsrud. And this is Quartet for the End of Time. And I remember, and actually the blurb's on the back right here, but I almost bought this when Kelly and I were in Montreal a few years back for the Rogers Cup. And I remember seeing on the paperback edition there just the high praise in the blurbs from Tim O'Brien, and his blurb is on the back of this edition as well, as is the blurb from Andrea Barrett, who wrote Ship Fever and The Voyage of the Narwhal. So yeah, I've been curious about this book for some time, and to get the hardcover of it for, I don't know, $5 or $6 was a good deal. I got a book that I've talked about at length on my channel and is so far the best book I have read this year. But I got the hardcover of Lincoln and the Bardo by George Saunders, again from Daedalus Books. It was like $5.98 or something. I will try to leave a link for those of you who are unfamiliar with this online bookseller of remaindered books. I'll leave a link in the description box, but Lincoln and the Bardo for $6 hardcover. Even though I like the British cover better, I will live with the American cover for that price. So it's a real treat to finally own that. And then the last book I wanted to share with you guys is The Unwomanly Face of War, an oral history of women in World War II by Svetlana Alexievich. Now, I have read her book, Voices from Chernobyl, which blew my mind and convinced me all by itself that her winning of the Nobel Prize for Literature was absolutely warranted, even though she writes nonfiction, and even though she's more of a kind of collator or curator of interviews than a writer in her own right, if that makes any sense, which it probably doesn't. But I just thought this sounded absolutely magnificent, and I can't wait to read it. This is the third book by Alexievich that Kelly and I own. So that was the book haul. I don't feel any guilt about doing book hauls. I know that there's this weird thing on BookTube about I don't know, people reacting to capitalism or something, and trust me, I feel as cynical and as skeptical about capitalism as anyone, but we're book lovers, and we love acquiring books, not so necessarily so much so that we can say that we own them, but so that we have the promise of them on our shelves. And I don't think there's any shame in that at all. And yeah, if you've got the money and you can buy books now and then, you're a lover of books, then by all means buy books. If you have the money and you are a huge music fan, go to concerts. If you're a film buff and you have the money to go to the movies once in a while, by all means go to the cinema. And don't be embarrassed about or ashamed of or afraid to share what you've seen or the concerts you've gone to or the books that you've bought. This is what this whole platform is about for all of us, is to share our love of books. And if that sometimes means sharing the books that we have acquired, that we've purchased, well, then that's what it means. There's no shame in that. So anyhow, my friends, I will see you guys again very soon. If you have read any of these and have any thoughts on them, certainly let me know what you think in the description box below, and I will talk to you guys again before you know it. Adios.